Happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone. Welcome to the Cafe on Air podcast, DraftKings edition. I'm Big Italy 42 here with Spencer Limbach, and we are talking about some DraftKings strategy for this, we'll just say, not exactly attractive 5-game slate on a Tuesday. Looks more like a Monday kind of slate for those of you that hate Mondays. So we're going to dive into it here. Spencer and I, of course, both rocking the green for St. Patrick's Day, going with a throwback unintentionally, like he mentioned in the other podcast. He's got the Seattle Supersonics. Yeah. I'm rocking the old Draft Street shirt, so little blast from the past action from us here. And we're going to go ahead and get started here, Spencer. We're going with point guard. Give me who you're looking at. Who's your favorite play at point guard on DraftKings tonight?
Favorite play? That's a tough question, actually. There's just a lot of decent plays, but I don't know if I would label one of them as, a borderline must.
Okay.
Tyreke Evans and Michael Carter-Williams in the upper middle tier really stand out. They have much more favorable prices on DraftKings than FanDuel. I really like Evans and the security he provides in a matchup like this. We said it on the FanDuel podcast that Milwaukee's starting to regress on defense against point guards with Michael Carter-Williams at the helm, as we expected, because he's not that great of a defender. So I like Evans in this spot if you can fit him in. I'm not building my lineup around him, but I would feel confident if I had 7,500 left over and he was there.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you there with both those guys. Just to put in perspective, both guys right around $1,000 more on FanDuel. So guys that you kind of thinking about playing there, but a little bit priced out, especially when you're trying to fit some studs who are also more expensive over there, James Harden and Anthony Davis. Or I guess Harden the same price, my mistake. But either way, these are two guys that really unplayable on FanDuel outside of tournaments, but certainly in play for me here as well. We mentioned on the other podcast, Chris Paul, with Blake Griffin back, yes, a good individual matchup, a bad overall matchup against Charlotte tonight. It's just going to be hard for him to pay off that big price tag, and I think you still agree here, considering his DraftKings price.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, he's not someone I'm targeting really at all tonight. Yeah. But Michael Carter-Williams, I should say that I think he's a great tournament pick here. Maybe not so much for cash games because that injury situation last time, that phantom injury situation, as we should say, came out of nowhere after a lineup block. We really don't know what Jason Kidd's plan for him is. I mean, maybe he's fine. Maybe they'll roll him out for 40 minutes again. And if that's the case, he has upside, as he always does. I mean, it's a decent matchup. But, I don't know. I think it's risky for cash games.
Yeah, or maybe Jason Kidd doesn't have a plan at all, and he's just going to kind of wing it like it seems like he does at times. So
yeah,
definitely frustrating there, but can't really imagine that he's going to pull that same thing with the same player twice in a row. It wasn't a disciplinary thing, or so we were told. So he seems like he should be good to go tonight, and they're going to need him if they're going to compete in this game, especially considering Anthony Davis's matchup, which we'll get to here in a few minutes. Also at point guard, we've got a couple other options. If you haven't heard, Greg Monroe out for tonight's game, suffered an injury in practice yesterday, so more shots to go around. I'm going to be going ahead and looking at Reggie Jackson, who, yes, he's struggling recently, but Mike Conley may end up sitting out once again tonight, giving him a solid matchup against the likes of Bino Udrih and Nick Kalathis up top, 6,400, and you're going to have no choice but to shoot the ball because really no other scorers on this team. Drummond not a consistent scorer. Probably going to see Tolliver starting at the 4. I mean, you've got, who knows, Caron Butler, obviously not going to be scoring. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope not consistent. So it's going to be the Reggie Jackson show. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see him take 20 to 25 shots tonight, maybe put up a pretty nice line.
Yeah, I really like that pick. And I think the key here is Conley. If he sits out, Jackson's going to be a really good pick tonight. Because, I mean, just looking at the path of least resistance for Memphis, you got Drummond's going to be down low, grinding with Gasol and Randolph. He's not going to have many shot opportunities. Caldwell-Pope, he's going to be hounded by Tony Allen more than likely. So they're going to ask Reggie Jackson to, create his own shot and carry the load on offense.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe he shoots 7 for 21, but at that price, not a lot of options around that 6K. So
he'll get the volume, yeah.
Yeah, volume will definitely be there for him. So got to like that. Elfrid Payton at 6,200. Talked about in the other podcast as well. Seemingly a tough matchup against Patrick Beverley, but he's a guy not scoring dependent. I mean, really not a good shooter or scorer at all. So that's not something that really concerns me. I mean, his free throw percentage just abysmal. I mean, shot 4 for 15 against Boston from the line. I mean, that's worse than Andre Drummond. I mean, or
point guard in the NBA?
Yeah,
are you kidding?
A point guard. I mean, you see this. Speaking of your Seattle Supersonics, I see that throws you back to like Vin Baker type of numbers. I mean, maybe even worse than him. But either way, Elfrid Payton, got it. Definitely stuffs the stat sheet. He 10 assists, 9 rebounds his last game, 9 assists the game before. So he's the guy that can fill it up. May only score 8 to 10, maybe 12 points, but you really don't need him to score a lot of points to pay out the salary. And once again, not a lot of options. So I'm still a pretty big Elfrid Payton fan tonight with those huge minutes locked in.
Yeah, I am too. You're looking at him, Reggie Jackson, and Alexei Shved right in that range. And of those three, I'll probably lean Jackson if Conley is out. Then Payton number 2, and Shved a third, because we don't really know what New York's plan is in general, let alone against the Spurs. If they get blown out, are they going to scale back his minutes like they did against Golden State? We really don't know, and the price is jacked up, and I really don't want to pay to find out with Alexei Shved. I mean, other than tournaments, because he does have upside, as we've seen. But I'm just not sure the minutes will be there or the production against the pretty decent San Antonio defense overall.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, he hasn't even shot the ball particularly well. And you look at it, the 2 really big games he had were on the strength of 10 rebounds and 11 rebounds. And Shved, not much for rebound. You can't bank on that.
Yeah, I mean, you look before those double-digit rebounding performances, he had like 1 rebound, 2 rebound, and the games before that, seeing, about the same minutes, around 30 minutes. So it's like, yeah, I mean, it's just not a great indicator moving forward.
Yeah, and I completely agree. And just to further that point, I had actually looked it up after that first game to talk about on the podcast the following day after his double-digit rebounds, and he's averaging less than 4 rebounds per 36 minutes for his career. So I said it was unsustainable, wouldn't happen again. Lo and behold, the next day he grabs 11 more rebounds. So kind of eating my words there for a day. But then again, you look at it was the Lakers who aren't interested in rebounding, scoring, shooting, anything basketball related. And then he plays 2 good teams in 4-4. So don't expect those big rebounding numbers. Maybe pays off his tag, but that expensive tag, I mean, it's just not a fan tonight.
Right.
Cheaper point guards, obviously, if Mike Conley sits Bino Udrih at 3,800, it's a safe cash game play. Should get you right around 20 fantasy points. Don't expect more. It's not going to give you any more than that. Outside of that, no one else I like. Anybody else for you?
No, I think Udrih is. I think he's a safe pick in this. I mean, if you need someone in the guard or utility spot, I think you can bank on him, like you said, 20 fantasy points.
Yeah, and that's more than enough at that tag as well. So shooting guard, we don't need to tell you the beard is the play. If you've got the money, you're playing James Harden here, $10,800. I mean, not a whole lot to say about this one. Huge usage rate, not a lot of other consistent scoring options. In fact, none that you can really rely on a night-to-night basis. James Harden, if this game stays close, will be one of the highest scorers on the night, fighting with Anthony Davis for it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're paying up at shooting guard, he's your guy. I don't know if you have to pay up at shooting guard. If you're trying to work in Davis and some viable pieces around him, I think you can dip down to Chris Middleton at 6.8K. I think he's a fine pick there. Should be a competitive game. He's seeing over 40 minutes a game as of late with OJ Mayo and Jared Dudley out. So they need him to score. They need him, to keep this game close. He's going to see his shots. I like that pick in that range.
Yeah, and I completely agree there. I mean, not only does he see it minutes, but 17, 21, and 15 shots attempted his last 3 games. So when his shot is falling, I mean, he's got huge upside. And like we've seen, I mean, I think it's 3 of his last 7 games he's had 40-plus fantasy points. So especially on DraftKings with that 3-point bonus, definitely takes some 3-pointers. So keep that in mind. Significant upside for him there at shooting guard. And a little bit further down, we talked about J.J. Redick briefly in the other show. $6,500 on DraftKings. No chance in hell I'm playing him tonight.
No, I'd rather pivot down, like you said, your boy Danny Green, 5.6K. If you want to kind of go into that rationale, behind that pick.
Yeah, I mean, it's a phenomenal matchup for Green. Obviously, huge point spread. We've seen it with the Spurs before, and coincidentally, they're the only one of the powerhouse teams that hasn't rested starters recently. I mean, even throw the Nuggets in the mix right now, as they rested some guys last game. So maybe tonight's
They're
the
not
night.
powerhouse, though.
Yeah, powerhouse and Nuggets that have
Yeah.
all rested people. So maybe the Spurs are just sitting back and laughing while everyone was mad at them before. Maybe tonight's tonight. You see, Tim Duncan get some rest. Obviously, Ginobili out, which just bumps up Danny Green here. Marco Bellinelli just not very effective. I mean, if for my money, he's the worst non-center on the Spurs team. Not a chance I'm touching him tonight. Danny Green should get minutes. Great matchup. I like him a good deal.
Marco Bellinelli is basically a minute eater. Kind of in MLB, you have innings eaters for pitchers.
Yep.
He just, he's there.
He's the Bronson Arroyo of the NBA.
He just runs three-point line to three-point line. If he gets the ball, he might shoot it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he'll just pass and won't see it for 3 more minutes. But
yeah, I like that analogy. He's the guy that throws the ball and says, "Go ahead and hit it, just don't hit it hard."
Yeah, pretty much. I like that Danny Green pick there. Otherwise, if you want to go a little bit cheaper, a little more risk-reward with Corey Brewer, as we mentioned on the FanDuel podcast. Orlando's pretty bad against small forwards. Corey Brewer leads that second unit. He has 30-plus fantasy points in 3 of the last 4, and I think he could see enough minutes to approach that range in a good matchup. Plus, this is like an 11-point spread, so if it does get out of hand into that 15-point range, they'll leave Corey Brewer out there in garbage time and rest James Harden. So you can look at it that way. He's cash game playable, might be more of a tournament option, but someone to keep on your radar.
Yeah, and you brought up a great point before. I mean, he's the leading scorer off the bench for Houston. Harden, the obvious top guy for the first unit. So put those two guys together in a tournament, maybe in a cash game, and Houston was one of the higher team totals on the night. I mean, you could get yourself a good chunk of that scoring from both units.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit cheaper here. Shooting guard, the answer to me is next. Moving on to small forward. You on board? All right. Kawhi Leonard, we touched on him briefly. The other podcast, too expensive for tonight. Spurs supposed to win big. Maybe he still sees 30 minutes. Probably doesn't. Not a chance on paying his tag.
No, me either. I'd rather go down to Tobias Harris. I think he's a good cash game pick. He and Giannis in that spot. Giannis probably has more upside, similar floor. So, I mean, looking at it that way, probably lean towards Giannis in that spot. Or are you thinking the same?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, both with similar floors. Greek Freak there playing some big minutes, so high 30s for the most part. And we saw him explode against the same New Orleans team last week for 52.25 fantasy points. So, obviously not expecting that, but something in between 25 and 52, I'll be more than happy.
Well, I'll take that on a 5-game slate, as ugly as this one.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. And the best part about him, you're playing FanDuel and DraftKings, you can get yourself him on FanDuel, shooting guard, DraftKings, small forward, kind of shore up some weak positions for you there. Kind of slot him in. You're getting 25. Hope he has a big night.
Right.
Trevor Ariza next up. Is that where you were going with that one?
Yep.
All right, go right ahead. I cut you off.
Like we said, it's a great matchup against Orlando. He's hit 30-plus fantasy points in 3 of the last 4 as well, except against Utah, which, as we said, they're playing really good defense right now, so you can't hold that against him. He's just kind of a, cash game filler in that range, safe pick. Not tremendous upside, but not tremendous downside. So, I mean, if you need a safe pick in that range, he's your guy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, pretty much any night, especially while Dwight Howard is out. If you need a cheap play at small forward, go ahead and just click in Trevor Ariza. He's got a safe floor. Like you said, not a ton of upside, but he's not going to kill your teams. Except for when he plays Utah.
Right, yeah. Anyone plays
everyone's
Utah.
doing that.
Yeah. Looking down a little deeper here, Tony Allen could actually put up a similar line to Trevor Ariza, right in that about 25 fantasy point range or so. He's seeing over 30 minutes lately. He's a guy who stuffs the stat sheet. Decent matchup against Detroit. He's only 4.2K on DraftKings, so I like that price point for him seeing those minutes. And if you need a little more cap space to bump up one of your plays, I really wouldn't feel bad with Tony Allen in that spot.
No, not at all. I mean, he's kind of my go-to. If you have an open spot, you don't love anybody else, you know what you're getting out of Tony Allen. 20 to 25. Never really going to put up a huge game, but you never need him to at his price in the low to mid 4Ks there. So
Right.
I like that call a lot. Small forward, looking down further makes me want to throw up. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to power forward, where the obvious top option in case you, I don't know, maybe in case you live in a cave, you don't have an internet connection, but you found one today. Anthony Davis is your top option. It isn't particularly close, I don't think. I mean, James Harden, option 1B, but Anthony Davis just demolished this team just 8 days ago. 70 fantasy points, shot 17 for 23 from the field. I mean, the guy does it all. Milwaukee's interior is awful. I know Davis played 50 minutes 2 games ago against Denver, but he did put up 84 fantasy points in that one as well. I mean, he's just on fire right now, seeing big minutes, seeing a ton of shots, and the Pelicans need him every night right now in that tight playoff race. So you got to lock him in tonight.
Yeah, and I think it's more of a conversation, Harden versus Davis on FanDuel than it is DraftKings. Because on FanDuel, you have Harden at 10.8, you have Davis at 12.3, and Harden on DraftKings is 10.8, and Davis is 11.4. So, I mean, it's closer in salary there. I think you have to lean towards Davis.
Completely agree. Next up, we've got Blake Griffin, who is finally back from his injury. Sat out for a few weeks there. His first game back, kind of, I won't say he picked up where he left off, but he had a nice all-around line. Didn't really look particularly great. Did have 5 fouls and 5 turnovers, but 11, 11, and 8, 41 fantasy points. He's a nice tournament play. No way I'm playing him in my cash games over Anthony Davis, but, I mean, he's got a good matchup against Marvin Williams down low, assuming Cody Zeller's out, who is doubtful right now, so I think if you're playing multiple tournament lines, go ahead and get yourself some Blake Griffin exposure because there's very limited power forwards with his sort of upside.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing a large tournament and something, heaven forbid, happens to Anthony Davis, you could be in a decent position with the next best power forward there, and this isn't a bad spot for him.
No, not at all. Greg Monroe would be a guy I would probably be targeting 7,600, but we already mentioned he's out, so do not play Greg Monroe. Zach Randolph next up, assuming he still goes with the news to Monroe, in a phenomenal spot and a just tremendous price tag once again on DraftKings. They've been giving us the Zach Randolph, the Zebo discount here for a few weeks now, and coming off 48 fantasy points last night is concerning, like you mentioned. He did play 39 minutes, so monitor this situation. As we know, every team in the world, good, bad, doesn't really matter, been resting some guys recently, so I tend to think it's more likely Gasol sits, but it's hard to say. Maybe they both sit tonight. So monitor that situation, but it's a great spot for Randolph if he goes.
Right. I'm definitely going to pay attention to the beat writers as we go along today, see if there's any sort of minutes limit or indication that he'll play less tonight, if not, fully sit out. But otherwise, if he's a full go, I mean, he's great at that price.
Yeah. And what's interesting to me is I've been watching that point spread is it was 5 points, then Greg Monroe was listed out. Now it's sitting at 4.5. So maybe that tends to make me lean towards thinking someone's going to sit. Maybe Mike Conley has been announced out while we've been recording. I'll have to double check on that. So that would be my guess if it's something to kind of even it out. Maybe Conley going out. But I think Monroe a bigger hit for Detroit than Conley is for the Grizzlies right now.
Maybe the Anthony Tolliver fan club just started betting Detroit right after that news broke, and they're just like, oh my God, Anthony Tolliver in the starting lineup. Detroit. Hundreds of dollars.
They can't wait for him to go 16 points, 1 rebound.
Yep.
But speaking of Anthony Tolliver, if we're talking cheap plays here, Anthony Tolliver is one of the ones to look at. $3,100, basically minimum salary. You can target him. It's not a great matchup. You anticipate he's going to be starting. We talked about in the other show. Neither one of us love him, but if you have to have a guy around that price, there's really the only option, $3,100. Go up a little bit. Boris Diaw should see some extra run tonight. Maybe the Spurs sits to one, so another situation to monitor as you've been noticing the trend over the past couple weeks. So Diaw with higher upside, but I mean, take your pick between the two. Seems like with the $400 discount, if it's significant, maybe go Tolliver, but tournament, I'm going Diaw.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of where we're going with the other show as well on FanDuel. Here, I mean, I had quite a bit of pushback with Tolliver on FanDuel. More so because Dia, and Williams were priced similarly or more similarly over there. I mean, here Marvin Williams is at 4.6K, and Tolliver's sitting at 3.1. So I have less issue with Tolliver, especially if he's starting here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, minimum price guy, he gets you 15 fantasy points. You're happy.
On a
You're
slate like
20.
this.
Yeah, on a slate like this with not much value at all. You're going to need to pick your value. You hit your value tonight, get your studs in there, and you're going to be in a nice spot. So, Moving over to center, your top option, as we said in the last one, Nikola Vucevic, $8,300. We don't need to tell you that there's no Dwight Howard. We also don't need to tell you that Houston struggles to rebound the ball right now, outside of Terrence Jones, who will actually have a fairly tough matchup against Dwayne Dedmon, who is foul-prone but is a solid defender. So, Vucevic, Vucimane, if you can fit him in, get him in.
Yep. I mean, like I said on the FanDuel podcast, click him in, click Anthony Davis in, and then kind of, weigh your options, work in your lineup, at least for cash games.
Yeah, completely agree. Marc Gasol, obviously not 100% right now. There's speculation maybe he sits tonight. Monitor that situation. But if he goes, going against Andre Drummond and or Anthony Tolliver and or any bench player that Detroit throws at him, Gasol, if he feels like it, going to have himself a field day tonight.
Yeah. He and Vucevic are really the only two guys I feel comfortable with at the center position. You can dip down, look at Zaza Pachulia. He's at 4K. That's a really good price for him on DraftKings. He's a volatile player, but, I mean, on a night like tonight, you're going to need to take some chances. So I can see him in a utility spot. He sees about 30 minutes a game, and if he's playing that much tonight, he should be up around 25-plus fantasy points again.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking as well, and I think he's a nice tournament play there, 4K. If you're looking around that range, really nothing else. I mean, I guess you could look at Cole Aldrich, but his minutes even worse, right around 4K. But, I mean, he's been very, very productive considering. I mean, 25, 32, 16, 38 fantasy points his last four, but he's also played over 22 minutes in one of those games. So you're hoping that he keeps that up in small amounts of time. Kind of the Chris Kaman effect from earlier this year. Not a route I'll be taking, but if I'm playing multiple tournament lineups, which I probably will be, I'll throw him in a couple.
Right.
And that's going to be about it here for center. I'm not targeting anybody else. Check out some great content at dailyfantasycafe.com. Follow us on Twitter at DFCafe. I'm at BigItaly42. He is at Spencer_JL. And we will see you guys tomorrow.